Absent that meaning, absent the fulfillment that we feel where we want to give our time and energy to things, the only thing we are left to work toward is results. Usually, those results are measured in the form of metrics, numbers, percentages, right? We put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy into measuring those results, and that's fine, that's good. We need those results also. Let's not kid ourselves and say that the numbers aren't important. They absolutely are. What I'm suggesting is that we often put an unbalanced amount of focus on the results. And the problem is, as you just proved, human beings are not inspired to hit a number. Of course, the numbers are motivating, especially in the short term. If our compensation, for example, is tied to those results, of course that's motivating. But what really inspires us, what really gives us meaning, is something more. Organizationally as well, results are only half of the equation, right? We deserve to be inspired at work, not just outside of work. There's a quote that I've heard, it's been attributed to a few different people, so I can't tell you exactly where it comes from, but it says, to say that an organization exists to make money is like saying that human beings exist to eat food. Yeah, the food's important. Yes, the money is important, but it's only half the equation, right? When we put a vast majority of our time, effort, and energy into achieving results, the numbers, we will obviously take the actions that are required to achieve that result. When we fall a little short, when we don't quite achieve that result, the natural tendency that we have is to go back to our actions. We try to do something differently, to change our behavior, to implement new skills or learning or technology to try to achieve the result that we have been tasked to achieve. When we do actually hit that result, what happens? All of a sudden that result is not good enough anymore, and now we're on to something else, right? A bigger number, a bigger result. And so we naturally go back to our actions, do the things we feel like we need to do in order to achieve the result that we've been asked to achieve. What happens if we're not careful is that we fall into what I call the hamster wheel of action and results. We show up to work every day, we know the checklist, we know the to-do list, right? We do those things, we get stuck in the weeds. What happens is passion goes down, stress goes up, and we start showing up to work because we have to, not because we want to. Now, in purpose-led, why-based organizations, this is less prevalent. But statistically speaking, there is a staggering number of you in this room who are stuck in the hamster wheel. Gallup does a worldwide engagement study. The last set of numbers that they found that around the planet there are about 3 billion employed people. And of those 3 billion people, there is a percentage that fall into the category of disengaged or highly disengaged. The disengaged folks are those who, when you ask them, how's work, they say things like, it's fine. The highly disengaged folks are those who, when their feet hit the floor in the morning, their day actually gets worse because they have to go to work. Think in your mind for a moment, what percentage of that 3 billion people fall into those two categories? Raise your hand if you think it's over 50%. You're optimistic. Keep your hand up if you think it's over 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%. 87%. 87% of our human family wakes up in the morning and would just as soon drive into oncoming traffic. This is not the way it was meant to be, right? Whether we knew what we wanted to be when we were kids or not, we grew up dreaming of being something that we loved, something we enjoyed. People wanted to be, physicians and astronauts and pilots and veterinarians and teachers and all these things. What happens between then and this? What happens is that we graduate high school, university, whatever it is, we get into the job market, and we are slapped with this reality that is not what we thought it would be. We get slapped into environments where results come before people, where profit comes before purpose, where the hamster wheel is just the way we do things around here. And at first, we may be resistant to it and we think, man, this is not what I thought it would be. Eventually, if we're not careful, we just sort of accept it and we say, well, I guess this is just what it means to have a job. And if we continue in this hamster wheel, we begin to perpetuate that for others as they enter into our organizations. Now, it doesn't have to be this way, obviously, right? I'm hoping that that 87% statistic does not apply to this room. Now, let's not kid ourselves. There are certain people in the room who still are here. But because of the nature of the work that you do, because of stories like the one that was just shared and the one that you will hear after me, there is a higher sense of purpose. There is a greater balance between the results that we need to get and the fulfillment or the meaning that comes from the work that we do. To get out of this, if this is where you are, and again, we're not all perfect. Sometimes, we have a bad week, we have a bad month, we have a bad year, and we find ourselves here. In order to get out of that hamster wheel, we simply need to take a step back and recognize what it is that gets us to fall into it to begin with, which is our perceptions. The core values that we have, the things that we assume, the things that we know, the window pane through which we see the world informs the actions that we take and therefore the results that we get. My intent today is to help you shift or perhaps even expand your perception on what work can be.